There was one night, 3 or 4 minutes down the road, I ran out of money. I had no money left for food. I didn't even eat that day. Nobody gave me any food, so I had nothing. There was nothing I had left. And I dropped to my knees in that parking lot and I said, God, I give up. If you can do something for me, do it. Show yourself to me. Show you what you need. Show me what you want from me. What do I need to do? I give up. I can't beat you in a war. I give up. Got nothing left. And it was probably the very next morning, I got a phone call. From my mom, actually. And she said, how are you doing?
Welcome back, everybody. This is Lessons for Life. Today, it is Lessons for Life with Dr. Ron, Bill, and the one and only Rick Haas. We are really excited to have you. By the way, almost all of our content is impromptu. I did have a conversation with Rick last Thursday, so I got some background. He shared a video with us, and we're going to do a little different format, and we're really excited. The testimony tagline I created is Rick Redeemed by Grace. There'll be a couple taglines for this young man, and the tagline I have that I thought of is Rick Redeemed by Grace, and I'm going to have an opening for you, so listen tight. Some people build a resume, other people survive a story. Today's guest is not someone who simply worked hard and became successful. He is someone who lost his health, lost his dream, lost his identity, and at one point even lost his home. At 18 years of age, he had a football scholarship and a future. Then Crohn's disease took his strength, his weight, and almost his life. He was from the stadium lights to the hospital rooms to living in a band van to asking strangers for food at a Walmart parking lot. But sometimes God doesn't rebuild your old life. He gives you a completely new one. Today, Rick Haas is a licensed real estate agent and broker associate. He is involved in real estate sales, development, and real estate investing. Rick is now a business owner, multiple businesses, by the way, helping hundreds of people succeed in Naples and around the Southwest Florida area. But the story isn't about business. The story is about grace. Because this story is about illness, identity, wandering, and what happens when a man finally keeps his promise to God.
How are we doing, everyone?
This is Lessons for Life with Dr. Ron, Bill, and Rick Haas. We are in our favorite grocery store here at Seed to Table in sunny Naples, Florida. We generally record Tuesday mornings. We're usually here from 9 to 12 or so, and we'd love to meet you downstairs. I don't know if Rick's hanging with us today, but we're usually downstairs about 11, having a cup of coffee. And actually, we're really grateful to have Rick today because the foundations of Lessons for Life is testimonials. Something that you've walked through that someone else is walking through right now, which is what Rick and I talked about before we put the record button on, to help you and to make a difference in other people's lives, our way of giving back to Jesus Christ. And actually, Rick started to introduce himself, but you gotta do, I have down, this is your boy.
Oh, you want me to hit it?
Yeah, hit it. Got to.
Well, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, the one and only Rick Haas, Marzuka Real Estate, Coastline Luxury Group, Child of God, here today. Let's go.
There it is. We had no other way. No other way. That's actually the best because that's how I know him. From all his posts, all his hard work out there. And actually, we'll get into a little bit of the business side too, just because we need to, based on his story. But that's all about branding, by the way. So that's just something he's created, his own way to remember him, like any jingle or anything. So it's so awesome.
That's like a nervous tick for me too. As soon as I do that, I feel comfortable.
Yeah,
3, 2, 1, I'm ready.
There you go. There you go. See,
all the butterflies are going now.
So I caught you, man. I caught you. So what I want to do is, based on a prior podcast you did, I want to kind of walk through almost all of it. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to question you throughout so that we're not just kind of stringing the whole scenario from beginning to end all in one kind of flow. We're going to break it up into different questions. And to start out with, actually hand wrote a few different things. And I wanted to get basically the background as to where you grew up and the type of family you were raised in, just to set the setting of the foundation of who Rick Haas is and what your parents might have been like, and just where you grew up, because now we're in Naples, Florida, for those that are watching and may not live in Florida. Give us some of that basic background, and we'll go much deeper than that.
Okay, so originally I'm from Arlington Heights, the Chicagoland area, and my parents moved me down here because my grandparents lived down here when I was 4 years old. They just couldn't do the snow up in Chicago anymore, and they want to move down to Paradise. And every time we came down here, my grandparents were always like, "What are you doing up there in the snow? You should get down here. It's Paradise." So we moved down here in '92, 2 months before Hurricane Andrew hit. That was our welcome to Florida.
Wow.
We just got, I think we got an apartment. My family got an apartment. My dad was starting up a landscaping company. And yeah, 2 months later, Hurricane Andrew hit. And my parents are like, "Are we sure we made the right move by moving down here?" But we ended up staying. And I ended up staying down here, grew up down here in Naples since I was 4. My parents were always involved in real estate. So they actually worked together on a team for Remax. And as I was growing up, elementary school at Laurel Oak, middle school at Oak Ridge Middle, high school at Gulf Coast High School.
I did not know this.
Yep, so I grew up in North Naples, and I always told my parents, inspections, appraisals, real estate sounds boring. I'm never going to get into that. That sounds so boring. I want to be a rock star.
We've talked about using the word never.
Yeah,
including me training at 5 in the morning that I said I would never change. But go ahead.
I want to be a rock star. I want to be a football player. I want to do something really cool. Real estate sounds boring. That just sounds stale.
Okay.
And so you followed your dream pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
You did. And you wound up in your parents.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that was pretty much my beginnings here. And
how about like the way your parents, I always want to set the tone because we're going to talk about your faith and how that might have touched you or not, so people can understand what your belief system is and how you think that might have guided you. But what were mom and dad like? Bill and I have asked many people, were you in a family where your dad told you not to cry? Were you in a family also where maybe you were supported, saying, I'm proud of you, I loved you? Because a lot of young men and women don't have that in their family life.
Yeah.
So what was that basic household upbringing like?
My dad was always a workaholic. He's Capricorn entrepreneur to the fullest. He always taught me that you're either working for someone else and making them wealthy, or you're working for yourself. It's always a risk to work for yourself, but never live life with the what if. At least try it out, and if it doesn't work, you can always go work at McDonald's if you want, right? There's always a job out there. So my dad was always working, and my mom actually, when we moved down here, started working for a carpet company, and then after that, she ended up being a secretary for North Naples Baptist Church here in Naples. So she ended up being that, and so my parents weren't really. They were religious, but not really attending church all the time. But with my mom becoming the secretary, the pastor there was like, "Hey, you got to come to church now."
Yeah.
So then we started going to church at North Naples Baptist Church, and I started getting involved in the youth group, which kind of gave me like a second home with friends and everything like that. So that was
Fellowship.
that was kind of our upbringing as far as getting into church.
Well, we got to go one step deeper because I have down here. So we're talking about early life personality. What about, I think you have a brother, sister, and you apparently were like the black sheep. I heard something about long hair, that maybe your brother and sister, they were in the military, that type of thing, clean cut. So we got to go there. And then you mentioned your parents were in real estate, and then, relating, faith to that slightly with your mom just there. But how did you fit in with the rest of the household as things moved along with the black sheep concept?
So I was always kind of the wild one of my siblings.
There you go.
I'm one of the middle child, so I have a younger brother, and then I have 2 older sisters, and both my older sisters have different moms. We all have the same dad. Me and my younger brother have the same mom. So I have 2 older half sisters, and each one of us are all about 3 years apart. My younger brother's 3 years younger, and then my next sister's 3 years, and next sister's 3 years after that one. So I didn't really grow up with my older sisters as much because one lives in Washington State, one lives in Chicago. So I grew up with my brother.
Okay.
But my brother was always the quiet one. He always learned from, I was always one getting in trouble. So he learned,
big brother.
Yeah, he learned not to do what I did. And my 2 older sisters were pretty clean cut. They really didn't get in too much trouble. I was always the rebel of the family, which gave me the black sheep name. So
there you go. Well, his other nickname I didn't say yet. It moves forward when we get a little further along, but I have Rick Rocks Real Estate, because he does. So we're going to be touching on that. But did you feel, what was Christianity to you in those early years when you were a young man?
Confusing.
Even a young boy. Like, did you even have any interest or anything whatsoever go to church at all? Any of those type of things when you were maybe even elementary to middle school, and then we'll move into like high school?
Yeah, it was very confusing at first.
Confusing is good.
Because,
I don't think we've ever had anybody say that, as a matter of fact. We never heard the
contradictory. When you learn it, you're close to it, and then you go out into the world every day. It's kind of contradictory. It goes two lives, and so it would be very confusing.
Yeah, at a young age, it was confusing, because you're being told you have to believe in something you can't see.
Correct.
And you have to have faith, which is one of the hardest things I think us humans deal with, is having faith to not have to worry about, tomorrow. So at a young age, it was confusing. But my mom was always very religious. My dad was kind of coming around to it. And really in the beginning, it was my mom dragging me and my brother out to church. My dad saying, I got to work, I got to do this. And eventually we got my dad to come to church. So in the early stages, it was very confusing until I got real involved with the youth group.
Okay.
And that's when, I had peers around me that's like, hey, no, this is kind of how it works. This is, the belief system and everything like that. So as I started maturing through the youth group, I felt this strong calling to actually be a youth pastor. So as I was in the youth group, I started at 15 years old, I started teaching youth group. I asked the youth pastor, hey, would it be okay if this Wednesday night for youth group, I did like a lesson. Wow. So I would write out a whole lesson in this little journal I had based off whatever scripture. And I was so nervous. I was just reading off of it. Not like I am today. I'm so comfortable in front of a camera and everything.
We're going to talk about that too.
But I was just reading off of it, shaking like, and so God said, and I'm looking at my peers, they're like cheering me on, like, you got this, you got this. So
that's good.
Eventually growing up, 15, 16, I started doing some teaching and felt a calling of maybe being a youth pastor was my calling, because I felt good doing it. I felt, like that was God calling me to something big.
Many pastors of churches started youth pastor. That's where they got caught into it. They just started realizing that this is awesome.
Yeah.
Ron and I see that same thing today. Myself being older, I am so encouraged. Just walking up here, running into a couple of guys, younger, 30, 40 years old. I mean, to me, that's younger. But that's the age we need to catch it. That's the age of influence for families and kids and children and friends. And I'm so pleased to see the desire and the passion for spreading the word. It's just so good. And through testimonies like yours, we're spreading the word of real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, we got to interrupt because we got to do the please like and subscribe, because people ask how you can help support the channel. Clicking that like button on our YouTube channel doesn't cost you a thing, but hit that subscribe button. So I do want to say that. We're going to move into some of your athleticism, because really powerful. A couple of the questions that I'll just read that I had here. You had a football scholarship. Anyone who knows what that might look like, the cost of college, to be able to be at a level or have a talent or a gift to the level where you achieve a scholarship. I want to know what that meant to you. And then you ran into some physical ailment, and we're going to talk about that, about weight loss, eating issues, weakness. And then I think there was a mention too, at one point you might even have felt angry at God. But there are a few different questions there. But let's talk about, I think it's very important to discuss what that might have looked like at such a young age, as a young man, to have the talent that you had. And I think even the desire to go to the NFL, to go to the professional level, which that's a huge desire and drive. So give us that background as far as the football and your athletics.
Yeah, so through Gulf Coast High School, they had a program called FCA, which they still have, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I got real involved in that. So every lunch, if we didn't have a football meeting, I would go to that. So that got me. So all I wanted to do was Christ and football. That was high school for me. And
so you see, I didn't realize that you already had that in you then when you mentioned Jesus Christ.
Yep. And I wanted to go to Liberty University. I wanted to play football there. I wanted to study in seminary because I was real gung-ho about being a youth pastor. And, I loved football, defense especially. It was either you get hit or be hit. And I wanted to do the hitting. I didn't want to get hit.
Yeah, but to mention your weight too, your height and your weight, because we talked about that.
I was 6 foot, 195 pounds.
As a freshman in high school?
As a freshman.
Okay.
I was actually 6 foot in middle school.
Okay.
170 pounds. So I grew very fast in middle school.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to play football, and so all I wanted to do was go to the NFL, play football, and use that platform to spread Christ. That was my
See, there you go.
goal.
I didn't know that.
That was my whole goal, and so I ended up getting 3 offers to play football, which was University of Central Florida, FIU, and FAU. And FAU was probably the one I was gonna go to. I wanted to go to Liberty, but they never offered me anything. But and my parents didn't have a whole lot of money to put me through college, so I had to pick one of them. So FAU was close. It was on the other coast. I did football camps there over the summer. A couple of my buddies that played football that were a little older than me went there, so I knew I'd have friends there. So that was the goal. And so my senior year, the second half of my senior year, I had teacher's aid, PE, and government and economics. So I took all my classes early, so my senior year would have been just a breeze.
A free float.
Yeah, so I'd show up in the morning, and my first class was lifting weights. So I would get to school and lift weights. I was literally like living the NFL dream of just lift weights, read about God, and play football. So it was my birthday's in January, and it was the second half of my senior year. And I used to work as a caddy at a golf course locally around here. And it was a couple weeks after my birthday, I started feeling pains in my stomach. I started getting sick, and I ended up, I was at work, and I had to leave work because I drank a glass of water and threw up, and I'm like, this is so weird. And I started feeling sharp pains in my stomach. And so after that, I got sent home from work, and I thought maybe I was just sick. Well, after being in bed, barely able to get out for about a week, my mom said, nope, we're taking you to the hospital. So they started running all kinds of tests on me. It was probably about 2 or 3 weeks I was being poked and probed every different direction to try to figure out what was going on with me. And finally an ultrasound picked up some black pictures in my intestines close to my colon. And so they said, well, you probably have to go get a colonoscopy to see what's going on. There's something in your colon that's not letting you hold down food or water. At this point, I was out of school for a month. I was bedridden. I could barely get out of bed. I would take a sip of water and throw up.
So this was from being on top of the world, having everything, cruising through his senior year.
Yep.
So talking about a house of cards coming crashing down. Think about that, being in his position at that point. Full ride, full scholarship, great athlete, probably had tons of women surrounding him all the time. Go ahead.
And it was pretty much that's pretty much the picture.
Pretty good life, yeah.
That was pretty much the picture. And so I really just at that point I just had to finish high school and go play football and live my dream. And then I ended up, they found that I had Crohn's disease, severe Crohn's disease in my intestines, real close to my colon. And at that point I missed about 2-3 months of school. We had to contact my principal, which was actually my principal in middle school as well. We had to contact him and say, hey, all he needs is government economics to graduate. You know, what can we do? They contacted my teacher, which was, I think, the girls' basketball coach at the time. And he knew me from sports. He's like, yeah, he's a great student. He always does his work. You know, I'll give him a pass. He doesn't have to do any of the work if he's able to come back, or I'll send him work to his home, whatever we got to do to make sure he graduates. So Gulf Coast High School was really workable with me, and they helped me out a lot getting through
But then
that.
you get smacked further, because talk about your weight loss, talk about the scouts. What happened to you?
So the first 2 weeks of, once I found out I had Crohn's disease, by the way, and I couldn't even sit up. I would get sick sitting up. Like right now, I wouldn't be able to sit up like this. I had to lay down.
I think it's hard for people to, Crohn's disease is something I don't know. In a clinical setting, I hear about it. You hear a lot about gluten, I guess is what I'm thinking. You hear a lot about gluten, but they kind of link it and throw in Crohn's, and it doesn't seem anybody it brings the severity. Like, explain that, because I don't want people to think, oh, it was just Crohn. You were incapacitated. I need to impress that.
Yeah,
that this wasn't just a diagnosis of Crohn's. Take a corticosteroid, you're fine. No, this was incapacitating.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know what Crohn's is, it's basically like a steroided version of IBS. So it's the foods that you eat, the things you put in your body, you have to be very careful of. And your stomach will let you know. You'll get sharp pains.
You couldn't drink water. You couldn't even have a sip of water.
I couldn't even sit up without feeling sick. And so Crohn's disease, it's an uncurable disease, and it's one of the country's top 10 debilitating diseases. I think it's like number 4, to be honest. And it's one of those things that they don't know how to cure. They don't even know where it comes from, and they believe it's hereditary. But there's nobody in my family line that has Crohn's disease. So I'm the
imagine being told that from your doctor in the height of your athletic career as a senior in high school.
Yep. And so once we figured out that I had Crohn's disease, I had a doctor's appointment, and I'm laying down in the doctor's office with the colonoscopy doctor, and he said, can your mom leave the room? I said, okay. So my mom left the room, and doctor looked at me and said, your organs are not doing well. You haven't been able to eat for about 2-3 weeks, and you're throwing up everything. You went from 198 pounds to 147 pounds and just a little under 2 weeks.
140. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he said, we got to get you on chemotherapy now, because what's going to happen if you don't, and you continue this way and you can't hold down food or water, there's only a certain amount of time your body can survive without food or water. And he said,
this just became life-threatening, which I don't think people would ever think of that.
No, he said, it wasn't the Crohn's that was going to kill me. It was the fact that I couldn't put down food. I couldn't put down anything.
You couldn't nourish your body.
I couldn't nourish my body at all. So at this point, I'm taking multivitamins just to get something in my body. And I'd even throw up the vitamins. So he said, if your body continues this way, your organs will start shutting down and you'll have less than a year to live. Not necessarily the Crohn's that's going to kill you. It's the fact that you can't put food down. You can't give your body what it needs. And you're already, I looked like a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
You could see, you could count every single one of my ribs. You could see every single one of my bones, my knee bones.
Oh my gosh.
You could see everything.
I mean, think about the psychological impact on a young person.
Oh, 100%. I just turned 18.
And then you have the scouts not coming.
Yeah, it was probably a couple months after that. And that's the very scary news to hear at 18 years old, when you had the whole world in your hands, hear you have less than a year left to live if you do not get this treated now and we can get food in your body. So it was probably a few weeks after that, the scouts called. They called my football coaches. And nobody knew what was really, really going on with me at that point. And the football coaches had to be honest, because the scouts, all 3 scouts called and said, how's he doing? Is he continuing with his workouts? Is he keeping up his speed, his strength? And they said, honestly, he's at home bedridden right now, may not even be able to graduate high school. He lost 50 pounds overnight, pretty much, and he can barely even walk.
What a drastic physical change.
Yeah, it didn't take more than 5 minutes for each one of those scouts to say, all right, well, we have to give the scholarship to someone else.
Wow.
So I got a phone call from my football coach saying, hey, all 3 scouts are dropping you. You could still go play football there if you can get your weight back, but they're not giving you any sort of scholarship. My parents didn't have the money to send me to those colleges. So at 18 years old, I'm laying in bed, I'm crying, telling God, why? Why would you take this from me? Why would you? I had everything. I had the football scholarship. I had everything. Why would you take this from me? I was going to be a youth pastor. I was serving you. What was the purpose of taking everything away from me? What was the purpose? And all I heard from God was, wait, you'll see, wait.
Oh, wow. As I was just going to ask you.
So Job comes up.
I just was going to ask you if there was a moment when you were angry at God. You already just jumped right into it without me even asking that.
The opportunity to be real angry,
I mean, it came hand in hand, because I was laying there bedridden for 3 months. I literally, in order to go to the bathroom, I had to call my mom into the room to help me out of bed, which the bathroom was in that same room. It was a guest bathroom. I had to call my mom into the room to help me out of bed, to walk 4 feet, to help me sit down on the toilet to go to the bathroom, and then help me stand up, because I didn't even have enough strength to stand up from a sitting position to help me back to the bed. The only people that came to visit me while I was sick were my friends from youth group.
How about that?
Oh, really? No coaches?
Nope. No friends from high school. It was just friends from my youth group came in to pray with me.
About the brotherhood,
Yep.
about the fellowship.
Well, in the search, and I'll see what Bill, I'll pass you the mic too, but searching, for answers, right? I'm searching for relief. You mentioned to me you're on the heavy medication, Remicade. You actually got transitioned to Humira. And what was that season like? Because we want to talk about, and again, this is, for those that are watching, this is going to circle around about how I can take this young man's testimony and give some answers to you that are watching, or you have a son or daughter that's walking through this terrible situation. And so I want to tie in the word, we talk about some of these medications that you tried to try and find answers to this. And then you walk through depression, that's a key word, anxiety, and then the whole mental, the dark place that people walk through especially when you're at that age, 17, 18, 19, in that bracket, and you have everything going for you. My gosh. So that medication too, because there's a lot of people out there that are on all kinds of drugs. So talk about that too, this Remicade and Humira.
Yep. So as soon as we figured out what it was probably about a week after that doctor's visit where we had my mom leave the room. And I honestly did not tell my mom about that conversation until much later in life, because I knew it would destroy my
By the way,
mom
these
to hear that.
medications, I think they're for I looked it up, tumor necrosis factors. They're like serious stuff, and they do use it for Crohn's, but it's not like just a Tylenol. This is like nasty. This is nasty stuff.
So it was probably about a week after that, I went in for my first Remicade treatment,
That's an IV?
It's an IV.
So it's not a pill.
It's about $2,000 every treatment, and I had to do it every other month. So my treatment would last for about 60 days. And I had to go in there. They had to hook an IV up to me. It took about 2 hours. It was a drip IV.
Wow.
And it took about 2 hours. And I was sitting in there with cancer 4, cancer 5, some cancer 3 patients in the infusion room. And they were all much older than me. You gotta remember, I was 18 years old.
There you go.
Still in high school. And all these guys were 50s, 60s, and even 70s. And they would all ask me, "What are you doing here? We're all in here for stage 4, stage 5. What are you doing in here?" I said, "Crohn's disease." And I started explaining it to them. And so Remicade is a form of chemotherapy. And so they had me on that for probably about 5 years. But I felt like
wow. I didn't know you were on for that long.
Yeah, okay. I felt like luckily I got government assistance because my parents couldn't afford to pay $2,000 every other month. So I got an assistance program which helped me with that. But I felt like a flamingo. I felt like, one thing was working, the other thing was not, right? So, and I didn't feel good, and I still felt sick. But I was able to put down food. I was able to slowly gain back weight, but I still didn't feel right. I still wasn't able to exercise. And so I said, what else do we have? And at this point, I'm 24, right around there, and 23, 24, and they said, well, let's try this newer thing, which is Humira. It's self-injection, so you gotta, grab your stomach and self-inject yourself every 2 weeks. And I said, okay, let's see if that makes me less groggy and feel better. Nope, same exact thing. Humira is just a weaker version of Remicade. So then I felt even more sick because of the Humira wasn't as strong. And I said, well, what else can we do? And that's when my doctor said, well, I can't really prescribe this to you, but medical marijuana might help with your appetite, with the inflammation in your body. It might help with some stuff. He's like, I can't recommend it. It's not really tested for Crohn's, but it could help. So I met up with some holistic doctors, and they said, let's give it a shot. Let's see how it works. And I started using cannabis, before bed. And throughout the years, I was able to wean off of Remicade and Humira, and now I am 10 years now without any of those drugs, and I'm healthier than I've ever been.
Look at this guy.
That's amazing.
Man,
gained all my weight back. I'm back to 198 pounds.
I've only known this guy as a very happy-go-lucky man. So to hear this story, for those that don't know him, and the way I knew him more superficially, just always seemed like a great guy. Never thought he had any of the chips stacked against him at all. And did the illness itself, did it affect your faith? Did you walk away from God? I want to make that clear, because we're gonna move into a little later, I want you to talk about a promise you made to God. But how did the illness affect your faith, and did you turn your back to Him?
Use some big words here. I hated God because I felt like He took everything from me. I had the whole world, everything. My grades were good. I had the football scholarship. So when that happened, and I was going to be a youth pastor, I'm like, I was thinking, God, why would you do this to someone that wants to serve you? Do it to someone that doesn't know you, that hates you. I knew you. I was teaching people about you, and I wasn't even able to go to youth group. So it's like if you really wanted me to stay strong in your faith, you took youth group away from me because I couldn't even go to that anymore. So I hated God with a passion.
Wow.
I turned away from Him so quick. I said, if you're going to take all this away from me, we're going to war. And I went to war with God all through my 20s. I said, I'm gonna get better, and I'm not going to give you any gratitude. I'm going to say it was all me that did it.
Did you hear what he just said?
I went to war with
God. It's all me that did it. And that comes from people that are down and out, and that comes from people that are super successful. They think it's all about, it's all me. It's all me.
And
it's a huge statement.
I didn't realize until much later in life, that was a test from God to see how I was going to react. And I failed terribly. And so
now you get that. Now you
100% I get it now. But I turned from Him, and all through my 20s, I got wrapped up in the secular world.
We're going to be talking about that next too, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I hated God with a passion because I looked at Him as like, you took everything from me. I'm going to do everything in my power to steer people away from you.
Well, if you don't mind, let's talk about. So we discussed moving into your 20s. You ended up in a band, a reggae band, right?
Yeah.
I have it down as SoFlo. You actually had a couple albums. One of them hit. I think you said you even beat Bob Marley. You had like the top three. The top three list, or were you explaining to me?
I think we beat them for maybe like 2 days.
But still, you did, right? We still got to mention that. And what was that like? I mean, did music? I guess where I'm trying to move is people, search. They go in the lowest of lows. Did music become your identity? And did it fill the hole at all that the illness and the loss of the scholarship that kind of left you with? What was that next steps? Because people don't know that you had this and continue to have a music career.
Yep. So early after high school, once I got my strength back, I actually took over my dad's landscaping company because he kind of wanted to get out of that. He started buying laundromats, one in Wisconsin, one in Naples, and one in Knoxville. And then after my brother graduated in 2009, they pretty much moved to Knoxville.
You had a brother and sister, one of each, or?
Two older sisters and a younger brother.
I apologize. Okay.
No, but my sisters never lived down here. My younger brother, of course, did. But once he graduated high school in 2009, my parents moved to Knoxville, where my mom's side is from. And my dad didn't want to do the landscaping thing anymore, so he passed it down to me. So I took over, and I loved working outside with plants and everything. But after 2 years of doing it, I realized I only liked working on my plants and my garden and my home. I didn't like working on everybody else's.
Imagine that.
Because I had a few people that at 3 a.m. would call me, some clients, and say, "Hey, there's bugs on my plants." Okay, well, I'll be there at 7 a.m. They're not going to kill it. And they go out there, and it's like bugs that benefited the plants, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, these are good bugs. But anyway, so I did that for a couple of years, and I realized I didn't like doing it as much as I thought I would. So I ended up selling the company and used that money. And now here I am, 21 years old. I had probably 70K in the bank. I'm just
70K.
Yeah,
most 21-year-olds don't have $200.
Yeah, once I sold the landscaping company, I had 70K. I was 21. I lived on my own. I had a boxer, his dog, and so I said, well, I've always wanted to travel around the country, and my second oldest sister was getting married, so me and my dog traveled from Florida to Washington State, went to her wedding, everything like that. So I kind of did a little traveling around the country for about a month, went through 10 grand really, really quick. And then I had about 60 grand left, and I said, well, what am I going to do with this? And I had a buddy that was a drummer and said, hey,
oh my gosh.
me and one, Jake. And I said, yeah, I went to high school with Jake. Well, he's a singer. And he wants,
of all people, Jake.
He wants to start up a band. And he said, well, he's doing merchandise for this festival out in Miami for this other band. you want to go with me to the festival, meet them? So I said, yeah. So we go out there and we all connect, and we all said, let's start a band together. So at 21, 22 years old, we started up a band called SoFlo, which is an acronym for Southwest Florida. We all grew up down here, so we picked up the members and we got all the members together, and I used my money to buy like instruments for the like a drum set and soundboard and everything we needed to do it. And then we recorded a couple songs, and then we started playing some shows here and there. Really, just for
you mentioned Bob Marley's studio. Is that true? You were in Jamaica?
Yeah, that started happening later on.
Okay.
So then, early 20s, we got the band thing going, and then we started touring around the country.
You got the band.
Yeah, we got the band. Then we got the band, and we got all that together. It was actually really cool. And my role in the beginning was just selling T-shirts and doing merchandise because I was the investor. So I said, just take me everywhere and feed me. Take me everywhere and feed me. I really don't know what I want to do in life, but I got a bunch of money and let's do this. So the band started getting bigger and bigger, and we were touring probably every other month or so. It was we were here home for about 30, 40 days and on the road for 30 to 60 days. I think our longest tour was 65 days. And so in my mid-20s, fast forward a little bit to my mid-20s, we came out with an album called Such Is Life. And that one...
should have been called Lessons for Life.
Yeah, Lessons for Life. So that one actually hit top 3 reggae iTunes charts and reggae Billboard charts. We couldn't beat Bob Marley's Greatest Hits. That one just lives. It lives up there at number 1.
Okay.
It's so hard to beat that one. But we hit number 3 and we were like, wow. And then all of a sudden, you know, record labels and other venues around the country started noticing us. And we had very humble beginnings. We only had enough money for $20 a day for each member. So you had to spend your money wisely. And some of the members, you know, smoked cigarettes and stuff. So they spent all their money on cigarettes and tried bumming some of my ravioli. And I'm like, not gonna happen, right? So, and then
Chef Boyardee.
Yeah, we all had to get one hotel room. So whoever drove got a bed. And so 4 people in 2 beds and the other 2 or 3 had to sleep on the floor. So I was usually the one sleeping on the floor. I had a backpack as a pillow and a comforter as a blanket. So that was pretty much my 20s. And then we came out with a second album called New Shoes towards, I think, 2016, 17.
Man, that's not even that long ago. Man.
No.
Oh, wow.
And that one hit top 3 again. And I think we might have beat Bob Marley's Greatest Hits for like 2 days. I think it was like 2 days.
So,
we might have beat him.
I don't care, man. That's
but it was cool. It was cool. But one of the songs that we recorded on the first album, we actually went down to Jamaica and we co-headlined it. We flew into Kingston, which is the most third world country I've ever been to. Yeah. It was literally kids walking around with assault rifles, barefooted. There was no windows on the homes, no doors. They had blankets for windows and doors. So it was really third world. And you got, you know, a bunch of us white guys with dreads and long hair going down there. And so we had a bus that was designed for us and basically a tour guide that said, hey, we got to stick together because Jamaica is really known for kidnapping and things like that. So they watched us. We had our own security detail that kind of hung out with, you know, followed us around to make sure we were safe. The Airbnbs we stayed in were gated. So we went to Kingston with the sole purpose to record one of our songs in Bob Marley's studio, which was really cool. So we got to go into Bob Marley's studio and record one of our songs. And at the end of the recording, they're like, hey, you know, you guys have to leave because we have a couple artists coming in. And it happened to be Damian Marley and Stephen Marley, Bob Marley's 2 sons that were the biggest in the reggae world. And they come walking past the window as we're recording and our jaws are because those are like people we looked up to and like we got to see them. And so we left the studio and we traveled across Jamaica to Negril where we co-headlined at a festival with Taurus Riley and some of the real big Jamaican artists there, which was super cool. We didn't know how they were going to take us because, again, a bunch of white guys playing American reggae.
Yeah, I love it. So, I love it.
And we had dreads
just makes the story
long hair.
Much better.
And we're like, we don't know how they're going to receive us, but they loved us. They treated us really well. And by the way, Jamaican jerk chicken in Jamaica, that's the real deal. So good. Oh my God.
With that, lean over because this is the point. We hope that there you go. You're enjoying this because we're getting deep. We're gonna move deep because as soon as you finish your comment, we're gonna talk about what happened when that new identity fell apart.
Yep. So it was.
We're getting back to it.
Yeah. So that second album hit top 3, and then before you know it, we got signed to a smaller record label called Duck Records, which was just one step below the big record label. And we started touring heavy around the country. We started flying out to places, House of Blues in Cleveland, and we started playing these big places. And now at this point,
at that point you're telling your parents, "See, I got this."
Yeah, at this point, well, because in the beginning, my parents didn't really understand.
About the starving artist, the starving band member.
They didn't understand the music thing. My parents came from, you after high school, you get married, buy the house, white picket fence, you get a job, have kids, right? So they grew up, that was their mentality. So they never understood the whole reggae. And I had long hair.
That's what I was saying.
Down to my stomach. They didn't get the whole gypsy hippie reggae music thing. They love music, but they're like, we don't get it. You're not really getting paid. And I'm like, Mom, Dad, music and acting are like the 2 hardest things to ever really make it in. But we're gonna make it one day. And at this point, I told then my parents finally got it. I'm like, I told you so. We're gonna do something.
There it is. The I told you so. And
I'm still a punky young kid, and still all through my 20s, I still was like, see, God, I told you I was gonna do it without you. I told you I didn't need your help.
Yeah, I'm glad you're circling back to that.
And so that whole time, I never gave him any credit. I never gave him any glory for the success I had in the band. Then I started mid-20s. I realized we needed a sound guy because we would play all these venues. At this point, we were packing out venues, 400 or 500 people. Anywhere we went in the country, Chicago,
wow, that's amazing.
California, anywhere we went, because now those 2 albums that hit top,
you had some
we had some clout, and we started to open up for big bands, big festivals. And so I never gave any glory to God. I just looked at it as like, oh, we're doing all this. It's all us. It's not you. And so in my mid-20s, I started learning how to run the sound for them because we would go to play in different venues and there'd be a different sound guy for every venue and no one really knew their sound. And sound's a big thing. If you go and you see a band that sounds crappy, you think the band's crappy when really it's the sound guy.
By the way, Lessons for Life is not crappy. We're in a grocery store.
Yeah.
Hopefully the sound's pretty good.
Oh yeah.
This is going to be my new sound guy. We're going to get better.
So I started learning sound.
Another story with that too, where that led you. We'll come back to that later.
25, 26 years old. Right before that second album dropped, I started learning how to run sound for them. So at that point, I also started up a photography company. So
here we go.
So because I'm very entrepreneurial, the last time I ever worked for someone was high school. So at that point it was the band. So if you can imagine, I'm running around at a rock reggae show. I'm doing the sound. I turn to my left. I do the merch table to sell t-shirts and stuff. And I had the camera wrapped around my shoulder. Then I'd run up to the stage and take pictures.
Multitasking.
I'm running all 3 jobs. Plus I did all the driving because I didn't drink at all when we were on tour. So I would drive us from city to city. So we would play a show in Chicago. And we would get done with the show at midnight and have to pack up everything and drive all the way to Colorado the next day or Wisconsin or wherever. So the guys would sleep in the van and I would drive us 10 hours and we'd wake up at a hotel room, do the same thing all over, right? So that was pretty much my 20s, was in a rock reggae band, which was really cool because I got to go to Yellowstone 4 or 5 times. I got to go to Glacier National Park, the Redwoods, Grand Canyon, Vegas. I mean, you name the national park, Olympia National Park. I mean, you name the national park, Smoky Mountains, Long Island, New York. Yeah. I've been to every single state except for Hawaii and Alaska. It's the only 2 states I have not been to. And not just going to, but also just stopping and staying in.
Sure.
And the most weirdest place was when we went and camped in Roswell, New Mexico. We camped 2 or 3 miles away from the alleged UFO crashing. And it was outside and it was very eerie, super eerie. But yeah, so I got to see the country and do what most people don't get to do in their life, which is see the whole country.
Yeah. Well, let's move to the next step. So tell us about, and then Bill, do you have a question you want to swing in?
No,
not yet. You're coming in.
Amazing.
You'll be coming in shortly. But so tell us about, for those that are watching, this guy went through, if you think about in your high school years, being a great athlete, getting a scholarship, having scouts looking at you, to have a doctor tell you got this illness to where you can't even keep water down, whole life unraveling, moves into a new identity with his band, also then has success there too, by the way, but we're going to move to the next steps, turns his back to God, says he hates God, says, and then feels like he actually can do it in his own strength at this point.
And does it.
I told you so. I got this. I don't need you. Again, speaking about his faith. And then let's talk about the decline and crash of the band and how you ended up moving into the band, literally, and what that looks like. So let's move into there, and then we're gonna talk about a little bit about how you rebuilt your life, some of the stuff we have going on today, and then really speaking to the people that are watching. They're saying, "Man, I'm there. I'm living in that space right now," which is a lot of you.
Yep. So yeah, all through my 20s, like I said, I turned from God. I didn't go to church anymore. Didn't read the Bible anymore. I didn't do daily devotionals anymore. And you know, when you're traveling in a rock reggae band, drugs happen. You know, there's drugs that, you know, people at shows, hey, try this, do that. So I was real wrapped up into that secular part of the world where I didn't care, and I thought it was me that pulled myself out of everything, when I didn't realize God was preparing me for something even bigger until now in life. So towards the end of the band, I would say 2018, right around there, we started having some conflicting issues with the lead singer of the band. And it was the whole Steve Perry effect. Lead singer syndrome is what I call it, where the lead singer thinks they are the star. They're the reason that people show up. And it was the whole show people showed up. You know, there was our bass player swinging his dreads around. It was our guitar player jumping up on speakers. It was our drummer standing up on his stool and drumming, right? It was a whole show that you got. And so the lead singer's head started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he started thinking he was the whole show, to the point where we all took pay cuts to give him more money, and that still wasn't enough.
Wow.
And eventually 2019
Pride
came around.
before the fall.
2019 is when, so 2017 is when I grew up with Josh Marzuko and the whole Marzuko family in real estate in high school. So Josh Marzuko was a year older than me. He went to Naples High, I went to Gulf Coast, but I knew him from hanging out and parties and all kinds of stuff. And so in 2017, he said, you know, I'm starting up this real estate brokerage. Keep it real small. It's gonna be a small thing. I said, cool. I'll jump in as like I don't have my license, but I'll jump in as a private investor, because I still had some money left over. So I jumped in as a private investor.
Oh man!
Fast forward 2019, when our lead singer we were having issues with him. I got my real estate license in 2019. I said, you know, this is something I can do while I'm on the road. And we were actually on tour in Red Wing, Minnesota, which is right on the border of Minnesota, Wisconsin on the Mississippi River. And we were on tour at a gas station, and I did my first real estate deal, which was a vacant land listing in Golden Gate Estates. The sellers were in Naples. The buyers were in New York, and I'm in Minnesota, on the hood of our van with my computer, writing the offer, putting this deal together while we're on tour. Wow. So as soon as I put that deal together, I made, I think, like $1,200 off of it. And as soon as I put that together, I realized I can do real estate and do the band thing. So real estate was kind of a...
You thought you could.
Yeah, I thought I could. It was kind of a side thing. So 2019, that Thanksgiving, we're all doing our thing. I'm in Tennessee golfing with my brother and my dad, which, by the way, I was kicking their butts. I was winning. We were on hole 17, because we had this competition, me, my brother, and my dad. So they'll come down. Every year we play 3 rounds of golf with each other. We do a competition, but each person gets their home field advantage. My brother lives in Atlanta, so when we go visit him for Christmas, we play there in Atlanta. When I go visit my family for Thanksgiving, we play in Knoxville, and then when they come down here, we play down here. The winner of, you know, whoever won the most, we do like a little celebration in Wisconsin when we go on family trips, and we get bragging rights for a year, right?
Of course.
So I'm on golf, hole 17. I'm beating them on my dad's home field advantage in Knoxville. And I get this text from the lead singer. We all get it in a group text. Lead singer says, I don't feel like I need to call you guys. I'm just going to send this in a text. I'm done.
Oh, jeez.
And so we didn't have a plan B. Our whole world ended. Wow. We were probably a couple months away from signing to a big label and just skyrocketing. He said, I want to go do my own solo thing. And I'm done.
Oh, man.
So our whole world, by the way, I lost that round of golf because I ended up throwing a golf club in the woods. I was so mad. At this point, I'm like, God, really? You're going to take more from me, huh? Okay, we're going to continue this war, and I'm going to go harder against you. So I got more mad at God. Because I'm like, you took my health. You took my football. You're taking my band. and you're leaving me with nothing again after I worked 10 years to help build up this band. So I ended up losing that round of golf. I actually drove away on the golf cart. My dad ended up winning. He's like, "What's going on?" And I told my family. They thought it was pretty crummy too.
Sure.
And since that day, I never spoke to or even saw the lead singer after that.
Jeez.
But luckily, I had my real estate license for probably about 4 or 5 months. I did about 2 or 3 deals by the grace of God. Most people don't do any deals their first year in real estate. So I did a couple deals, and I had some money saved.
I know
up.
that.
So when I came back home, I started doing Grubhub just to get some supplemental income. I was able to get my own place, but before I came back home from that, the band was done. And that last year, I was the driver of the band. So the guys are like, "Well, you really don't have a place to stay, but you know, you could use the band van." And I lied to my bandmates and said I had a place to stay when really I didn't. I drove the band van to Walmart parking lot 101, exit 101, and I lived out of the band van. At this point, I had no money left. I had nothing left. Suicide was on my mind.
Wow.
I think I felt like I didn't have anybody that cared about me. God abandoned me again. So it was like, why not just end it right here in this parking lot in Walmart? No one's gonna.
Well, you answered the question, so I was going to say,
No
what's
one's
the
gonna miss
lowest point in your life? Is that not it, or is that it?
That's one of them.
Okay.
It happened again.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was pretty much homeless at that
So
point.
all of you that are watching, some of you might be in this position at this very moment. That's why we try and have fun with the podcast, but there's some of this that's really, really serious. And this man was in that position. I mean, jeez.
Yep.
We're going to talk about how you moved out of it.
That was an extreme low point for me, and I had nothing left. I ran through all my money.
You said you were getting cans of food by the people coming out of Walmart.
I had about probably $4 or $5 a day that I could spend. That would last me, I think, about 3 months, and after that, I had no money left. So what I'd do is I'd go into Walmart and I'd get one of those hot meals where you can pick out 3 sides for $5, and I would split the meal up into 3s, and I would eat that 3 times. So I'd have 2 scoops of mashed potatoes, 2 or 3 fries, and 1 piece of chicken. And I would do that 3 times a day to try to supplement food. But I was also standing outside of that Walmart asking people for can I have a can of ravioli or something? And people would give me stuff. Some people would say profanity and call me names and tell me to go get a job. But the thing was, I couldn't get a job. I didn't really have a way to the job, and I couldn't drive the band van because I didn't want the guys knowing I was burning their gas, because then they'd ask me, what am I doing, right? So at that point,
I was camped out in the parking lot with this van, sleeping in the van.
I had a gallon of water, and I would, at night when no one was around, I would take a shower with that. I couldn't even afford soap, so I would just rub my body with water.
And your parents at this point didn't know where you were at with this. They didn't know you were in this situation from what you told me.
They were just moving from Knoxville back down to Florida, but they moved to Cape Coral, and I was so embarrassed because I'm one of those people where I don't like to ask for help. I don't want to ask for help. And I don't want to go back to my parents and after telling them, look, I was right about the whole band thing that they didn't understand. I don't want to go back to them and say, yep, the band's over, you guys were right. I'm walking away with nothing. I don't want to admit I was wrong. And so suicide was number one thing. I was like, I just got to figure out a way to buy a knife in Walmart and just end it. Because I didn't even have enough money to buy something to end it quickly with. And I remember dropping to my knees in that parking lot.
Here we go. This is what
I was going to say earlier.
Ooh,
Finally dropped to your knees.
It's getting heavy. Give me a sec.
Take your time. Take your time. Because I had, was there a moment when you cried out to God again and you collect yourself? And Bill, I'm going to take the mic off because you're going to have a couple questions for him. We need to get you in.
Rick, how long was that season? How long was that season of nothing, living in the band?
Probably about 3-4 months.
So
it was rough. 3-4 months. And I didn't even have enough money for my medical cannabis. So now I started getting sick again with Crohn's.
Oh, wow.
Started throwing up again. And so, like I said, I was just, if I could just get $3 or $4 to go inside to buy a pocket knife, I'm going to end it all.
Yeah.
God never gave me the opportunity to get $3 or $4 for a pocket knife. to go
Well, you
in at
didn't
all.
think he did anyway. Yeah.
And so I knew I was like, well, you know,
That's
I
not
don't
what he
want to
wanted
see,
for you,
I don't
right?
want to see my mom crying at my funeral. That was what
Wow.
kept popping through my head. So it was one night, 3 or 4 months down the road, I ran out of money. I had no money left for food. I didn't even eat that day. Nobody gave me any food. So I had nothing. There was nothing I had left. And I dropped to my knees in that parking lot and I said, God, I give up. If you can do something for me, do it. Show yourself to me. Show you what you need. Show me what you want from me. What do I need to do? I give up. I can't beat you in a war. I give up. Got nothing left. And it was probably the very next morning, I got a phone call. I got a phone call from my mom, actually. And she said, how are you doing? You know, we're all settled in Cape Coral and love for you to come, you know, see the home and everything like that. And, you know, we got a pool here. You know, you love swimming. You were like a fish when you were a kid. Couldn't get you out of the pool. And I said, no, I lied, of course. I'm doing great. You know, everything's great. We're, you know, the band's doing like an acoustic thing now, so we're gonna work on that. And, you know, I'm staying at, you know, one of my buddies' house on the couch, which, you know, my friends in the band, they still kind of lived at home, but they always offered, come stay on the couch. But I was too embarrassed to say I got nothing. Let me come sleep on your couch, right? Your parents' couch. So I had just enough gas in the band van to make it to Cape Coral from Naples.
No way.
I think when I was pulling down the street, the thing hit like the emergency gas thing.
See, that's when you know God's there.
Yeah, he left.
When you know He's there.
He left enough gas.
That's right.
And by the way, when I was homeless in the band van, it was summertime,
I'm sorry.
and I couldn't turn on the van to get AC. So I would wake up as soon as the sun would come up. I'd wake up pouring sweat, and I have to wait till night to take that shower. So sweating all day, no food. But anyway, so I had enough gas to make it to Cape Coral. I made it to Cape Coral. I was pulling into the driveway, I think, when the van was shutting off, and saw my parents. And you know, they're like, hey, you know, we have an extra spare room. We would, if you need a place to stay. So I ended up moving in, and
had a home cooked meal. You told me.
home cooked meals. Yep. I don't think I ate
Mama's cooking.
I don't think I ate so much in my life. I think I ate everybody else's portions too. There was not one plate that wasn't clean after that day. And so then I lived at home, and around that time my dad was, and they moved back only because my brother lived down here and he had a kid. And so they wanted to be close to, if it wasn't for my brother having a kid, they wouldn't have moved back. The only reason they wanted to move back was their grandparents now, and they want to be close to their grandkid. And the timing of that couldn't have been any more perfect. So I ended up living with my parents.
God's timing.
Yeah, and so at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do in life. I knew I was going to do real estate.
You made a promise to God, you told me.
I did. In that parking lot, when I hit my knees, I said, God,
This is important.
if you can get me out of this, if you can show me what I need, I will do anything you want. You tell me what it is, I'll do. I'll cut off my arm. If that's what you want me. I'll gouge out my eyes. Whatever you need me to do, Lord, I will do it. I give up on this war. I thought I was beating you.
Yep.
You took everything away from me again, to humble me, to show me that I needed you again. And this time I'm paying attention. This time you got my attention. What do you need from me? And I will do it. And that's when I got that phone call from my mom the next day. I made it to Cape Coral, and I started diving more into real estate. My dad opened up actually a restaurant in Cape Coral around that time, and I started working for him, selling hot dogs and Chicago beef. But that was, and so then I got more heavily involved in real estate, and 2020 hit. Of course, everybody knows what happened in 2020 with COVID.
Yeah.
Real estate market went through the roof, and I became a
Here we go.
pretty much an overnight success in real estate, and saying that as humble as I can. And this is where I felt God directing me towards you need to get into real estate, right? You need to get back into, the thing I planted into
this
you.
This is the rebuilding.
Very long time ago.
I had Rick Rocks Real Estate and Rick Redeemed by Grace. They're pretty good titles. But go ahead. Yeah, here we go.
And so I knew it was like an early sign in life. My parents were in real estate and said, you should probably get into this. And I never did. Now I realize that was pretty much a sign from God saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. But okay, you want to go do this band thing? Okay, go ahead and do that without my help. See how far that goes. And so in 2020, I became a top producing agent that year, my very first full year in real estate for Marzuko Real Estate. And at that time, it was just the 6 of us. There were 6 partners total that started up the company. There were 6 of us in a very small office off JNC Boulevard, the industrial park. I think if you put 15 people in there, the fire marshal would get called. You couldn't fit any more than 15 people in there. And we started up this company with a 100% commission model just to give back to ourselves because we want to take commission from each other. And we thought it was going to be a very small company, but what we didn't realize was how fast it was going to grow. So the growth of the company took off. By, I think, the end of 2020, we went from 6 agents to about 50 agents. 50. And so we're like, okay, this is manageable. By the end of 2021, we hit about 150. 2022, we were at 300. And then right now we're at 5 offices with 500 agents. And every year I've ended up being a top producing agent at Marzuko Real Estate. But my promise back to God, because I told him, I said, you take me out of this, I'll do anything you want. So my promise to him, I started praying. And come around 2021, I finally got back to church. I finally got back there. Oh, it's heavy again.
Wow.
I finally,
this is
and you
good,
know what?
people.
I didn't have any.
Rick Haas.
I didn't have any. Bringing up some things.
Okay.
One thing while you're collecting yourself, you're going to talk about this, but this guy, so his buddy Josh Marzuko has become a friend of mine. I was going to ask Rick, did you ever imagine? He said he never thought he'd ever want to be in real estate. Now he's part owner of Marzuko Real Estate. He formed Coastline Luxury Group. We're going to talk about this in a minute. He's got Haas Homes Inc. He's got a transaction coordinator company where he's been helping agents fill out the paperwork that don't know what they're doing, or maybe do know what they're doing and just need timeline assistance and all transaction coordination. I think Open Doors Connect, is that the
Doors Open Connect? Yep.
Doors Open Connect.
Yep.
And then I hear now maybe pursuing insurance license, 239 Live. Holy smokes. Anyway, so let's hear about the God story, because this is the most important part. And I'm going to close this podcast when we close about this is the most important part. It's fun to emphasize and look at all the successes, all the different things he's doing, but he's touching on the most emotional part, and that's why this is so important. He turned his back, but then he made a change when he hit bottom.
Yep. So I made that promise to God, and overnight there's plenty of Bible verses that back this up about how God you'll have everything. God will take everything from you.
Yes.
It's the story of Jesus walking, through the wilderness for 40 days and being tempted by the serpent. It's the same story, same lesson, where everything was taken away, right? So everything was taken away from me. And I firmly believe this, that God will take everything away from you to humble you, to get you back to Him. And then He'll give you everything 10 times over, more than you've ever prayed for, more than you ever dreamed of. And this was my rebuilding, when He took everything away from me in my 20s. And then when I didn't come back to Him, He took it away again. And when I finally humbled myself, I started praying again. Towards the end of 2020, I started praying again. And a lot of friends and the political world, because I'm a conservative Christian, a lot of my friends said, hey, you got to get back into church. You got to come to this Bible study. So it was actually Patrick Dearborn, a good friend of mine, and a mentor of mine in real estate, invited me to this Bible study on Tuesday mornings at Seat at Table in 2020, where we're at right now.
Right before we turn this record button on.
Yep. I said, I'll come to it. So I came to it. There's only about 4 or 5 of us. And I started feeling the Holy Spirit move through me again. The same feeling I felt in high school. Yeah. I said, there you are. Yeah. And I said, you know what? Wow. I'm going to go to First
Yes.
Baptist Church here in Naples. I'm just going to go. And I looked up their times online, 10 a.m. I wanted to go to one with the band thing. I didn't want to go to the choir one
Hey man,
in the early morning. I like the band
I like the
thing.
contemporary.
I like the
music.
rock out contemporary thing. I was still doing the band stuff. So went to the 10 a.m. service, and one of the songs that they played was talking about how God will move mountains in your darkest times.
Yeah.
I started bawling.
Oh, yeah.
Bawling. I could not hold my tears back.
Yeah.
And the two songs that followed up after that were the same story that you know, God's got you no matter what happens. And I got the tingling feeling all through my body. I felt the Holy Spirit working through me. And so that service was
the
about
chills.
anxiety, depression, and suicide.
Sure.
It could not have been a more perfect service for me, because at that point I was still thinking, you know, maybe suicide's an answer. And I started bawling after that service. And as I was leaving, there was a guy that saw me, and he said, "Hey man, I saw you crying during the service. Are you okay?" And he was an usher, and he said, "Can I pray for you?" So he prayed for me, and he prayed for God. I don't know how he knew what I was going through, but he prayed for God to watch over me, God to protect me, and God to help me through whatever dark time I'm going through.
Man of discernment, you know,
and-
figured it out.
Yep. And after that,
Bill Builder said, "A man of discernment." So
That's right.
yep.
So
And so 2020, it was right before, it was a couple months before Thanksgiving, and I felt God working through me, and I said, "What?" Or no, it was 2021 at this point, and I said, "God, what? I want to fulfill my promise. What do I need to do?" And so what he put on me was, when I fed you in that parking lot, I need you to feed people. I need you to give back to people that are in need like you were. So I said, "Lead me. Where do you need me? Where do you need me, God?" And Immokalee popped up into my head. And I went out to a turkey drive with Patrick Dearborn, his turkey drive that he does. And I met Pastor Arnie out there.
Pastor Arnie,
at
an awesome guy. I know Pastor.
Love Pastor Arnie. At First Assembly out there in Immokalee, and met him. And I said, "I'm feeling moved towards Immokalee. I'm feeling, you know, this is part of Collier County, but it's the opposite of Naples. In Naples, we worry about, you know, our mocha latte, and out there they don't even have
every day.
grounds to make coffee, right?" So I started feeling God move me towards that. And I said, "God, I feel like," I prayed about it, and I kept being led back to Immokalee. So since 2021, so it's been 5 years now, since 2021, I started my own turkey drive. I went to Josh Marzuko and said, "Hey, I want to do a turkey drive out there, and I want to do a toy drive out there." He's like, "I got you 100%. Let's go. You know, you got the full support of Marzuko Real Estate." Without even knowing my story, he said, "You got the full support," which, by the way, all 6 of my partners, we all, except for one of them, we all grew up down here, going to high school together. So we all knew each other from high school. It was the craziest real estate story of how we started this company.
I love it.
Yeah. And so
We did some outreach things with Pastor Arnie, and your real estate, your agents came out.
yep.
You guys supported it. Oh yeah, they sent a bunch of supplies
And other churches too.
humans. Oh yeah.
Yep. So Marzuko Real Estate has been nothing but a huge support. He said, "You know, we'll get our agents on, we'll get them to donate, we'll try to feed as many." So since 2021, every year we've done a turkey drive out there where we raise money for turkeys. And what I do is the morning of, we'll do it on a Saturday at like noon where we give out the turkeys. The morning of, at 8 in the morning, I go rent a box truck. I go to Walmart. I pick up a couple pallets of turkeys, which is probably around 300 to 400 turkeys. And then I pull up there, honking the horn at the church. Let's go.
I love it.
So since then, we've fed thousands and thousands of families. I think every year we feed about 300 families out in Immokalee with goods. And then every year we give out probably about 1,000 toys. And that's been my promise. And I do it every year to keep my promise to God of what he did for me when I was in my lowest and I had nothing. And every year my turkey drive, if you come out there, you're going to catch me crying. And the crying is reminding myself of where I was when I need that help.
Well, let's,
That is wonderful.
Bill, you're going to have a few things, but we got to wrap this up shortly. But before we wrap it up, I said to you before, we got to dig a little deeper in you here. And I said, advice for the hurting. What would you say to someone battling chronic illness right now? I'm going to go through these questions. What would you do or say for someone who's depressed or suffering with anxiety, someone who feels that they failed in their life, and someone that feels God has abandoned them? We've touched on all that, but let's circle back, because this is an hour long that we just talked about this whole ride that you went through in life, turning your back to God, going and then turning to Him at the end at rock bottom, making a promise to Him, showing what He has done for you. But there's people watching, which is the whole point of Lessons for Life. By the way, this is Rick Haas. He's been on a whole long journey. For those that are just tuning in, go back and rewind. This is incredible, all the things he shared, the emotion, the heartfelt, the vulnerability that he's allowed for all of us to see what he's walked through and to guide us and to learn from him. But there are people out there that are suffering from some form of chronic illness. And what are just in a kind of a concise way, which is pretty tough for me to put on you, but what are some things you would say to these people that are, lost in life? They're suffering with anxiety. They got an illness. They feel like there's nothing more for them out there. Let's walk through some things, some suggestions, looking back where you are today, thinking back where you were then, with the knowledge you have, with faith on your side now, with the love of Jesus, everything you've done. What would you do differently? What could you share with people that are watching they're even thinking about, taking their life like you were?
If I could do anything differently, I would have never started that war with God. There's no winning. He wins in the end. The biggest advice I can give to everybody, even if you're not religious, look this up. Jeremiah 29:11. For God knows the plans He has for you. Jeremiah 29:11. For God knows He has plans for you to prosper, not for you to fail. No matter what you're going through, God's got you. He's got a plan for you. He's got a specific plan for everybody. Not one of His creations were made for nothing. So the biggest thing I can do, even if you're not a religious person, read Jeremiah 29:11 and know that God does have a plan for you. And there is only one way to heaven. It's Jesus. And suicide is not an answer. And that's something that Jesus and looks down on. He doesn't want His creation to end itself. He wants you to turn to Him, knowing everything that I know now, looking back at my life.
Yes.
All these things that I went through was a test. You can't have a testimony without a test. You can't. So everything I went through, looking back now, which by the way, now I'm getting my certificate through theology, because I want to learn more about theology. I can't sit still, so I got to learn something new. So looking back at it, everything I went through was a test, just to see how I was going to react. That's all God wants to do. Is He's up there in heaven with these blessings, saying, how are you going to react? If you react poorly, I was going to bless him. I was going to give him this.
It's all in preparation for the grand plan.
Yep.
You're living that grand plan right now.
Yep. So all those things looking back was just tests to see how I was going to react.
That's right.
To how my faith was going to be strengthened. And now every day looking forward, I read, I can't remember the exact verse, but it says, the past, and don't worry about tomorrow. For today has its own troubles. Worry about today.
6:25.
Stay in the moment.
2:34.
Worry about today. And don't even worry about today. Give it to God, because God's got a plan, and He's going to give you tests throughout the day, especially when you become a Christian, because Satan attacks he doesn't attack the ones he's already got. He attacks the Christians that he doesn't have, that he knows is reading scripture. So as a Christian, life doesn't get easier. You're going to get attacked harder, but that's only because we turn on the camera. Yeah, that's only because you have to remember that everything you're going through is a test to create that testimony, to build those riches in heaven for God,
your armor of God,
for His glory.
Yeah, so this will be a little bit redundant, but we always have a life lesson question. So Rick, if a person listening today feels they've wasted years of their life, what would you tell them about starting over with God?
If they feel like they wasted years of life, they're going to start over with God. I would say first thing to do is find a church that is Bible verse sensitive. Find a church that goes off not not traditions, but Bible. And there's no
We say not a religion, but a relationship.
a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people always ask me, what is your religion? It's like I really don't. I mean, I grew up in a Baptist church, but I really don't look at it as religion. I look at it as my relationship with God, which is being a Christian. Christianity is not a religion; it's a relationship with God, it's a relationship with Jesus Christ. So going back, if I would just tell someone, go to one church service and tell me you don't feel God moving through you. Just tell me you don't. It's impossible. And maybe get into a small group. There's small groups all over the place. Talk to someone. There's Christian-based therapists. You can go on Google and type in Christian-based therapist, right? Talk to one of those. They will guide you through life based on Scripture. But the more you turn away from God, you might get things of this world. And this is something I always like to leave with people, especially with someone that I'm talking to that doesn't, it's not religious, that doesn't really have a relationship with God. And especially, I had a conversation with an atheist, probably about, which by the way, there's no such thing as atheist because you have to believe there's a God in order to not believe there's a God. And so I had this conversation with them, and this is something I've always left with friends that maybe don't believe. I say this: if you're right about this whole Jesus thing and he doesn't exist, then hey, you're all good. If I'm right about this Jesus stuff, I get to spend eternal life with God and the kingdom of heaven, with the streets paved with gold, with no more pain, no more suffering. If I'm wrong about this whole Jesus thing, hey, I was at least a good person in the end.
Amen.
But if you're wrong about this, eternity in hell is a long time, and that's a permanent vacation. There's no way out of it. So I would rather follow Jesus, knowing that if I'm right, I get to spend eternity in heaven. If I'm wrong, I got nothing to lose. If you're right, hey, you had nothing to lose. But if you're wrong, you have everything to lose. So I always remember that every day, and that's something I always tell my friends that aren't into church and stuff like that. So going back, I would say get into a small group, talk to someone. Suicide is not an answer, not even close. And Jesus is the only way. I mean, you can't go to church, a Bible scripture-based church, and not feel God moving. You can't. It's impossible.
Well, that was an answer to our Lessons for Life question. Bill, do you have any comments before you're closing?
Yeah, thank you, Rick.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ron. It was great. This is if you kind of consolidate this is a story of a young man that grew up and grew into his life, grew into what he felt was his calling, health-wise, sports-wise, family-wise, everything. In fact, as I kind of read it, there's a little bit of a contrast, a little bit of a fighting between you and your family. Even I wanted my dream, you wanted another dream for me.
Yep.
You really wound up living your dreams.
Yeah.
At the end of this, pride caught you a few times. You got a couple God slaps, I call them, and this is a story about how where pride gets you. It gets you into a place where you need to drop down on your knees. At the beginning, one of my comments was going to be, until you do that, life isn't going to change. You took it a long way. I can relate to that. I lived a lot of my life by me. I did pretty good. But then all of a sudden, he smacked me.
Yep.
That's what happens. You had it happen 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
I think that's awesome. And if you look back at it, it's the pride you had, that you weren't going to give up your vulnerability. You were embarrassed. You felt funny. You wouldn't show the true you. You wouldn't show your flaws, But once you did, once you went home, Mom took you in, everything started getting better. Maybe you didn't share everything you needed to do with her, but you shared enough to get into that love again.
Yep.
Which brought you to where you are today.
100%.
All these things you're living today are rewards from the sacrifice you gave up. And even the fact that you're kind of prodigal and the fact that you came back. Yeah. You kind of went off and said, you know, excuse my language, to hell with you, I'm going. I can do this on my own.
Yep.
And for a long time you did. But I'll tell you, just as unsatisfying as living in the world is, you were unsatisfied with what you achieved and you needed more.
Felt empty.
That's
Felt
right.
empty.
Turning to God was the way to do it. So thank you for that and sharing that. And that's what you do. If you're feeling any of the things that Rick has talked about today, Ron has brought up, any of those paths you felt you've gone down or going down, or any circumstances aligning with a negative thought in your head, remember, you're never alone. Never. I don't care what you do. I don't care how you turn away, as long as you come back and repent and do, He will give you everything you need. That's what this story is. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, this is officially a record podcast as far as the length of time, my man, Rick Haas. So
I tried to squeeze it out as quick as I could.
this is, please give a thumbs up. Please like and subscribe to our channel. This is Rick Haas. This is Lessons for Life with Dr. Ron, Bill, and Rick Haas. I coined him Rick Rocks Real Estate. And as you clearly saw, Rick Redeemed by Grace. With the closing remarks I had, a few different areas I wrote down here. People that can be touched by this testimony. It's not just a story about real estate. It's not a real estate story. It's a hope story for people who secretly think they've ruined their life. I put down here, the people who click this video are not mainly realtors. They are the person up at 2 a.m, the person who feels they've wasted their 20s, someone who's sick and discouraged, someone hiding financial trouble, someone who's walked away from God thinking it's too late. And the closing statement I have, the closing remark here is, some stories are about achievement, but the stories that change people are about rescue. Rick's life reminds us that God does not choose people because they have everything together. He meets people when everything falls apart. Illness didn't end his story. Failure didn't end his story. Homelessness didn't end his story, because God writes in redemption, not rejection. Maybe someone listening today feels behind in life, or ashamed of their past, or tired of trying again. Here's the hope. God is not waiting for you at the finish line. He meets you at the breaking point. And the same grace that found Rick in a van, in weakness, and in desperation is the same grace that still finds people today. The worst chapter does not get the final word. God does. So I hope that touches you. And Rick, thank you so much. Also, a shout out to Kevin Van Duzer, who's one of our sponsors with Go to Golf. We always like to say hi to him and thank him for his sponsorship. Rick's a good friend of Kevin's as well. He does the Bible study just before us. Again, any comments would be welcome. We're normally here Tuesday mornings. You can meet us usually at 11 o'clock downstairs if you're in the Naples area. And if you have a testimony you want to share, we can also do that by Zoom if you're not in the area. But if you have something like you just saw with Rick, that you want to touch people's lives, we would love to have you. That's what Lessons for Life was founded on. And so again, really, really appreciate your time. I had no idea. Normally we do pretty much most of these podcasts are impromptu, but I did have a conversation with Rick on Thursday. So I had a little bit of background, but even with that, I had no idea all that we just discussed today. So I hope you watch it over again, and please share this with a family member. That really helps us. The likes, subscribes, the shares really will help this get out to other people, and hopefully we can touch many lives with your assistance, and that is most appreciated. You also see in my bio a link tree if you want some additional information. If you want to donate, that's also in my bio page. If you click our little logo there, it'll take you to the bio, and that's there for you as well. We want to close with our declaration, so repeat after me. I am blessed.
I am blessed.
Highly favored.
Highly favored.
Empowered to prosper.
Empowered to prosper.
And walking in divine health.
Walking in divine health.
All the days of my life.
All the days of my life.
Your life, his life, your life, your life.
Everybody.
Any final words?
Amen.
Peace out.